let me please start by turning around a little place here and apologizing to our guests that you're seeing our backs. And I apologize for that.
You might prefer that.
That's right, that might be the best side. So I'd like to call the meeting to order, and will the secretary please call the roll?
Mike Alley.
Present.
Dennis Bland.
Present.
John Costas.
Present.
Judd Fisher.
Yes, sir.
Colleen Gabbard.
Present.
Lisa Hirschman. Al Hubbard. Here. Chris Malone.
Here.
Chris Murphy. Here. Kathy Parkinson.
Here.
Dan Peterson. Here. Beverly Pitts.
Here.
John Pop. Unfortunately, is not feeling well. Alfonso Vidal. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Kathy Parkinson, sitting to my right, has been a commission member the last 2 years. She has been our faculty representative on the commission. I made some comments last night about her really stellar service in 2 years. She's been just a remarkable commissioner, great sense of humor, but a hard worker, always willing to dig into details, volunteer on committees, really added so much incredible value. And we want to recognize you, and we have a resolution that we would like to read in your honor. And I will call on Bev Pitts.
Yes, I'm happy to do that. Whereas Dr. Kathy Parkinson provided strong faculty representation to the Commission for Higher Education since her appointment on July 1st, 2017, and whereas Kathy was actively engaged in the development of the Commission's budget recommendation for the 2019-2021 biennium, and whereas Professor Parkinson participated in 2 H. Kent Weldon conferences for higher education, and whereas during this time Dr. Parkinson discharged her duties with distinction and impartiality, advocated for students and faculty in Indiana's public institutions of higher education, and whereas she successfully planned and hosted a well-received and the most heavily attended faculty leadership conference in February of this year, entitled Community Engagement, Moving from the Basics to Impact. And whereas Kathy led the Commission's efforts to establish the Gerald Bepco Faculty Community Engagement Award, which was given for the first time in February at the faculty conference. And whereas Kathy has the unique distinction of serving first as a member of the Academic Affairs and Quality Committee, and then later as chair of the Student Success Committee, even as she continued to serve on the AA&Q Committee. Now therefore be it resolved that the Commission for Higher Education expresses its deep appreciation to Kathy Parkinson for her 2 years of dedicated service as the faculty representative to the Commission for Higher Education and to the state of Indiana, and wishes her well as she continues her teaching and administrative duties as the accreditation specialist at Indiana University, Kokomo.
I just would like to say that, and I gotta do this without crying, that I've really enjoyed these 2 years. I've enjoyed getting to know all the commission members. While I thought I knew some of what the commission did, because I've been involved with Ken Sauer and the statewide Gen Ed Corps and some of those academic initiatives, I didn't realize what everybody does. And I've been so impressed with the staff and all that they do, and with the commission and the Commissioner Teresa Lovers. And I just want to thank you all for a wonderful couple of years. It's been great.
Have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Motion and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
For the record, a unanimous.
I should vote against it.
I'd like to invite Chancellor Ron Elsenbaumer to come up. He's been a wonderful host. Chancellor, for any comments?
I just want to say thank you for being here this afternoon. I want to welcome you to our campus, Purdue University, Fort Wayne. and welcome you to our wonderful Alumni Center. Many of you know that as we transitioned from IPFW to Purdue University Fort Wayne and IU University, Indiana University Fort Wayne, the Alumni Center has also rebranded itself now as the Mastodon Alumni Center, welcoming graduates from both sides of our campus. So this is a very nice facility. We use it often. And I just wanted to say thank you for being here. Welcome. And we hope you have a wonderful meeting this afternoon. We always like having the commission on our campus. We know you do important work on our behalf. So thank you. And I wish you a great
Chancellor Elsenbaumer, on behalf of really the entire commission, I just wanted to thank you and your staff who have been so warm, so gracious. It's been a wonderful visit for us at the campus, and there are very exciting things going on here.
Well,
so
thank you so much.
Appreciate it. I might comment that the new faculty commission member who will have the impossible job of trying to replace Kathy has yet to be appointed by the governor's office, but we hope to have that appointment in July. Additionally, officers for positions of chair, vice chair, and secretary of the commission are voted in each year in August, and I have established a nominating committee of commission members to propose a new slate of officers at our August meeting. Teresa would like to move that up, but I said, no, we better stick to our, I'm teasing. I'm just joking. We were joking about that last night.
The rest of us would like to move it up.
It's like the thing you tried to pull in the photo.
Okay, I will turn it over to Commissioner Lovers for her comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to reiterate some of the comments I made last night on behalf of the staff to thank Kathy Ferguson for her stellar service to the commission and our commitment to make sure that we keep her engaged in this work going forward in a variety of ways. We used to think of the calendar of the school year and that the summer months were downtime, commencements were over, classes are over, people go home. But clearly it's not a lazy time at the commission because as you heard this morning, we talked about a lot of new legislative charges that we've been given. But we're also finding that students who don't fit into just the 18 to 22-year-old, they look a variety of ages and working in a variety of ways to get degrees or credentials. Sometimes they're using the summer months to make up classes. They're getting their credits in multiple ways, online and other ways as well. And often doing that in a way that they can meet those obligations closer to home. So we're very much attuned to the fact that we have students that from a diverse kind of background. We're trying the best we can to work with our colleges and universities to serve them throughout the summer months as well. The summer is also the time for a lot of higher education convenings around the country because they tend to do that from a historical standpoint when they thought things were less busy. Interim study committees are starting already, and we'll have the privilege to work on several of those. Members of the CHE staff will be presenting at national and state meetings, including SHIO, which is the State Higher Education Executive Officers, MEC, the Midwestern Higher Education Compact. You should know, if you don't already, that our own Ken Sauer is serving as the chair of MEC this year. We'll be at Indiana Black Expo, Connexus, and of course we have multiple Lumina and Strata events. So lots going on in that regard. But we're also using this, as was evidenced yesterday, by talking about a new strategic plan to really reflect about where we've been and where we're going. And that is really the basis for this work we're doing to roll out a new strategic plan with a vote by December of this year. Many of our partner colleges and universities are engaging in strategic planning as well. We heard from the chancellor here at Purdue Fort Wayne about the work that they've done in strategic planning and what they're looking forward to doing in the future. And they're really exploring new ways to serve students and doing this in a lot of collaborative ways. I was especially impressed recently when I read an op-ed that appeared in papers throughout the state. It was co-written by Ivy Tech's President Sue Ellspermann and the Independent Colleges of Indiana President David Lantz.
We talk a lot about collaboration within the public sector, and that is critically important. But we also find that we're having more partnerships with our private institutions as well. And the relationship between Ivy Tech and some of these independent colleges, I think, is really interesting. And I wanted to highlight just a few of the things that they're doing. We heard from here at Purdue Fort Wayne of the growing collaboration between Ivy Tech, which is just across the street. But if we look at some of our other institutions, I'm going to highlight Merion University and Ivy Tech Central have launched an articulation agreement that really streamlined credit transfer. So a lot of the transfer that we've seen in the public sector, we're beginning to see more of that with private schools as well. A program has been launched that allows students to be simultaneously accepted at both the University of Evansville and Ivy Tech Evansville. Ivy Tech Columbus houses a full-time admissions counselor from Trine University, and students at Ivy Tech Valparaiso can complete a pre-engineering program that qualifies them for automatic acceptance into Valparaiso's engineering program. Ivy Tech Warsaw and Grace College are launching a program which will enable Grace College students to earn a technical certificate as part of a Grace program. I just thought that was fascinating, and that would not have happened a decade ago. And thanks to both Ivy Tech and our partner private colleges as well. I think these partnerships really reflect the way students learn, the swirling they do, the desire to combine both technical skills and liberal arts critical thinking skills, and really does speak to the collaboration that we've been encouraging here at the Commission, especially in recent years. So that's good news for students and the state. I want to share some other good news. You will recall that we have been providing information to you over the course of the last 18 months or so about Road Trip Nation and Road Trip Indiana, the documentary that we did that followed 3 students as they did career exploration around the state. We learned recently that Road Trip Nation State of Change, which is what it's called here in Indiana, has been nominated for a regional Emmy Award in the category Best Documentary Topical by the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, the Lower Great Lakes chapter. So, don't know that we will win, but I think it's an honor. As I say, it's always an honor to be nominated. A couple other items I wanted to circle back around with some information that Colleen had provided to you yesterday about her participation in the Institute for Higher Education Policy Summit in Washington, D.C. as a representative of Ivy Tech. She's now a student at Purdue. The summit really featured perspectives from a lot of students around, not a lot, how many were there?
There were about 5 to 8 of us.
Students who are talking about the cost of college and how they have made sacrifices to really complete their education. The report was called The Cost of Opportunity, Student Stories of College Affordability. I heard that, not surprisingly, that Colleen did a great job, and we just wanted to bring notice to that to you today, and thank you for your work. Finally, I wanted to introduce our newest employee at the Commission for Higher Education, Charlie Beezer, who is over here with us. She is our new Director of Communications. We're used to people poaching our employees, so we poached the chamber for this one. And she is taking Kate Stewart's position. Kate was with us for a while. She left to follow a dream of hers. She really is in the process of writing full-time a series of books that are aimed at early teens. This is a project that she's been working on off and on for about the last decade. So when she came to tell me, you know, there are a lot of times when you can try to encourage people to stay, but when it's clearly what somebody wants to do because it's been their dream, you have to say, Godspeed, go for it. I hope it works out. But we were fortunate to have Charlie join us. If you follow some of the chamber publications, you would see her byline in many of those, as she's written frequently about a lot of issues, including issues related to the commission. So we are fully expecting that she's going to hit the ground running, and we're delighted to have her as a member of the CHE team. So welcome, Charlie.
Thank you, Commissioner Lovers. Thank you for your comments. So the commission members in your agenda book contain the minutes for the last meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. As a commission continues to engage in conversations about helping students navigate through college and careers, we'll have an opportunity to discuss issues of teacher preparation. And we had a bit of a robust discussion in our meeting this morning in preparation of our guests. And Zach Smith from the commission staff will head up this session and introduce our guests.
Thank you, Chairman Lamoth, members of the commission. We're very pleased to have our three guests, and I'm going to introduce Dr. Mendez. He's had some traffic issues, but he should be here very shortly. But we're going to first hear from Scott Bogan. Scott serves as the Director of Higher Education and Educator Preparation Programs at the Indiana Department of Education, and he's been with IDOE since January of 14. Prior to his current role, he served as a licensing advisor at Purdue University West Lafayette College of Education, and before that, Scott was a middle school teacher for over 15 years. So welcome, Scott. Our second panelist is Dr. Kenneth Britt. Dr. Britt is the founding dean of the Fred S. Klipsch Educators College at Marian University. Prior to joining Marian, Dr. Britt served for 10 years as a principal and president of K-12 Catholic schools. Welcome, Dr. Britt. And I think I see Dr. Mendez about to join us, so I'm going to introduce him as well. Our final panelist of presenters will be Dr. Mendez, who is the dean and professor of the Indiana University School of Education at IUPUI. Prior to his current role, Dr. Mendez served in administrative roles at the University of Central Florida College of Education and Human Performance, as well as the Oklahoma State University College of Education. So again, welcome. I'm going to turn the floor over to Scott.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to participate in your meeting today. And I'd like to provide a little background information about what we do at the department in terms of teacher preparation and accountability, as well as some initiatives that we're undertaking at the department, and also a little bit of background on some of the work that we've been doing in cooperation with the Commission for Higher Education, as well as the Independent Colleges of Indiana. Again, my name is Scott Bogan. I'm Director of Higher Education and Ed Prep Programs at the Indiana Department of Education, and my primary responsibility is to coordinate accreditation and the accreditation status of our teacher preparation programs, as well as to monitor the review process for any new teacher prep program proposal that we receive as a department, as well as any new content licensure program proposal that we may receive. The department is charged with, make sure this is working, is charged with ensuring that new programs as well as existing programs are aligned to the educator standards and licensure rules expected by the state of Indiana. Again, I've been here for a little over 5 years with the department. Some of you may remember hearing about NCAPE, which is a national accrediting body for teacher prep programs. NCAPE underwent some changes, and a new organization replaced NCAPE known as CAPE, C-A-E-P, or Council for the Accreditation of Educator Preparation for National Accreditation. And we as a state, as a department, do require all of our teacher prep programs to seek CAPE national accreditation. That can be a little challenging at times, but because of the importance of national accreditation and ensuring that our programs are quality programs, we certainly want to make sure that we're aligned to what national accreditation requirements are. And plus our licensure rules and statutory language mandate that our programs be aligned to CAPE standards. So in terms of EPP accountability, we have the rules for educator preparation and accountability. And I understand you're looking at some information or updating information since 2008, if I'm understanding correctly. Since 2008, we have implemented 2 new licensure frameworks. The first is REPA, which is currently in place and will soon be replaced by REPA 3 later this year. And they're very similar, in structure, but the basic premise behind both is to ensure that our programs and are aligned to our educator standards as approved by Indiana, and that our new teachers and new educators are prepared according to the standards expected of the state of Indiana. So we look at ensuring programs are held accountable to these standards. I know that we're planning to discuss diversity and recruitment in bolstering the pipeline into education. So those are all important criteria that are involved in CAPE. In fact, one of the CAPE standards as components of Standard 3 is that all of our teacher prep programs will develop a plan for recruitment of diverse candidates who meet the employment needs of local and state schools, both public and private. Our goal in the near future is to create a framework or a boilerplate, if you will, for all of our programs to utilize so as to develop strong partnerships and grow your own initiatives at both the P12 as well as the adult career changer level. Because we do not want to just consider those in high school, but also those who are interested in becoming teachers, but who are already in the field and maybe are facing obstacles in becoming teachers. So we want quality, but we also want accessibility and fairness for those seeking admission. A few years ago, there was it was a House Enrolled Act 1388. And if you ask anyone in a teacher prep program, what is 1388, they'll have an answer. They know what it is. 1388 was an act that was enrolled about 3 years ago, requiring the department to collect various data points from our teacher prep programs and in consultation with the Commission for Higher Ed and independent colleges of Indiana, as well as the state board, to develop a minimum cutoff or for a matrix determining what we expect, the minimum level that we expect our teacher prep programs to meet in terms of EPP admission criteria, teacher and principal survey data, testing data, and I know we've heard a lot about testing recently, good and bad, teacher evaluation data, and impact on student growth. That's the huge point, the impact data that we collect, because much of what we are looking at in terms of quality, we're pointing back to what impact, good or bad, our completers who are in the field having on student growth. We also monitor Title II federal reporting requirements and a transition teaching report that we collect as a state or as a department and share with the field for those who are interested in the number of enrolled candidates who are admitted to a teacher preparation program, transition to teaching program. And some of our local or recent initiatives include recruitment efforts. We Grow Your Own initiatives. We recently hosted 3 regional meetings, one at Holy Cross, one at Marian University, and one at Vincennes University. We invited local superintendents as well as college deans to discuss initiatives for enhancing or bolstering the teacher pipeline through both EPP and P12 partnerships, as well as encouraging the creation of more alternative type programs such as transition teaching. We know that some of our programs, I'll point out Marian, for instance, have outstanding partnerships already in existence, IUPY as well. And we know that a lot of this work is going on, but I think the more we can share as a state and make these efforts consistent across the state, the better for all involved. And we're also looking at project-based learning, which is a requirement of within our standards. Right now, up to this point, we really have not monitored how well that instruction is taking place within our teacher prep programs, and so we're going to be incorporating that within our future accreditation visits, because that is a key component of our teacher prep introduce Renee Barada, and she joined me today. She's our P12 and higher ed partnership specialist, and so a lot of the work that we're discussing today, she is helping coordinate. So again, thank you for this opportunity to join your meeting today.
Thank you, Scott. And with that, we'll hand it over to Dr. Britt. He doesn't have slides, but he did provide the commission members with the Glitch Impact Report. So if you want to pull that from your place, we'll hand it over to Dr. Britt.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you for allowing me to speak today on behalf of Marion University. I want to thank Scott and his team for the work that they do with us. We're very fond, obviously, of Commissioner Lovers. Work very closely with her and her staff. The legislature gave us a great gift several years ago with the Next Generation Hoosier Educator Scholarship. And we work very closely with the commission to help, commission staff to help us give these students the opportunity to participate in this great gift. It's a significant scholarship, and we've used that scholarship very well over the last couple of years to help recruit really top talented students, which is a theme that hopefully you'll hear today about our program. I'd like to start with kind of the transformation that happened within the Glitch Educators College at Marion University several years ago. Most of you know President Elster. He's been there for almost 20 years, and his leadership style has been to not only grow Marion University, but to look at how we can provide value to the state of Indiana. For those of you who remember, in 2013, we opened Indiana's second medical school. That was in direct response to the primary care physician shortage in Indiana. We opened a College of Osteopathic Medicine. The majority of osteopathic doctors go into primary care. A couple of years into that, we started looking at what is another opportunity that we have to address our state's issues and challenges that exist. And if you go back 40 years, despite increased funding, not only in Indiana but across the country, increased opportunities and changes in education, the outcomes of students have largely remained the same. Nothing has changed. And I think many of you in here are business leaders. You would not accept doubling your investments in a certain product line and having the same results. You just wouldn't do it. And we've allowed that to happen in the United States for literally 4 decades. So we start looking at what are the challenges and what are the significant issues that impact student performance. Certainly the biggest is out-of-school factors. But we started looking at things that we can control. So we went through a year-long study to look at how we can address what we can control, which is teacher preparation. Half the teachers leave the profession within 5 years. That's dramatic. We're not getting the diversity in the teaching profession that were reflective of the students that they serve. That needs to change. So you look at why teachers leave, and there were 2 significant reasons. Number 1 is workplace conditions. What happens in schools? The second is they didn't feel prepared to meet the needs of education and teaching. Now, that's where higher education needs to look in the mirror and say, what are we doing to prepare these folks to lead classrooms? This is a direct correlation with 1388 data that Scott presented sometime at Butler last fall, where the number 1 criticism of principals of new teachers is their inability to manage a classroom. So here, a student at a university has spent 4 years and tens of thousands of dollars to go through a preparation program that's supposed to prepare them to meet the demands of education today, and it doesn't. That's where we stepped in and said, how can we make sure that we at least begin the change and hopefully work with other partners in Indiana and outside of Indiana to force the changes that we need to make sure that these kids get the education that they deserve. So really there are 3 things that we wanted to focus on in this transformation. First is the type of student we're looking for. Not just regarding diversity and inclusion, but that is a significant piece. The research that's out there that we saw in our study when we did this year-long study, students that have teachers that look like them are much more likely to not just graduate from high school, but to graduate from college. That's a significant finding. It is not uncommon for a young black male to never have an African-American male teacher. Again, why is that? What can we do to make sure that we change that? So the diversity is key. The second is also the talent. It's not uncommon for teacher prep around the country to have the lowest or among the lowest GPAs across the college campus. You remember that adage, those who can do and those who can't teach? Have you heard that before? Well, as an educator, that's kind of offensive, but it's somewhat true. It's somewhat true because of the GPAs when you think about it. President Daniels talks about the education department not having the high enough GPAs or higher GPAs. And that's reflective of including Marion University several years ago, and I suspect that's most across the country. So we need to make sure that we go in, and if we're looking for rock stars, we can leverage the next generation Hoosier Educator Scholarship and start recruiting students like Purdue or IU football or basketball coaches are going to recruit star athletes. Because teachers are the ones who make the most significant in-school factor or difference in the life of a kid. So we need to elevate the profession. So our first challenge that we wanted to move on was we're looking for really talented, diverse candidates to go into the profession. And within just a few years, I'm proud to report that this fall we've gone from 7.5%, which I think is about the state average of minority candidates, to 3.1 GPA. This fall, our class will be 33% future teachers of color with an average GPA of 3.72. That is a remarkable transformation. There's been a lot that's happened that, we necessarily won't get into this opening remark, but that has led to that, but it is a significant transformation, and we've increased our enrollment. So it's what President Ellis likes to call the triple whammy. The second area that was a significant change for us was what we call purposeful practice. Practice teaching. From the first day that you step foot on campus, you start teaching. We have a mixed reality virtual teaching simulation lab, which is really fascinating. If you've ever been into a medical school or a nursing school, you've seen those simulation labs, where you have the mannequins set up, and then you have a physician who can manipulate those mannequins, blood pressure, whatever it is, real life conditions. Well, we want those physicians practicing on mannequins before they practice on us, right? Well, it's the same type of concept for teachers. How can we get our teachers to practice on, we actually do avatars. They practice on avatars on a screen in a mixed reality. I call it the Wizard of Oz. There's somebody behind the curtain that's manipulating those students, which is really fascinating, but it's something to watch. We've hosted a number of different universities across the country to see that. That's part of it, but we also send our students to the field beginning of freshman year. Over a 4-year period, our students will spend 280 hours in the field teaching, not just observing classroom behaviors, they're actually teaching. At Marion University, on an annual basis, that is equivalent to 20 full-time teachers in the field every day. That's a significant number. So we save the school districts and partner schools, charter and Catholic schools, about $1 million a year through teaching that we do. So it's a significant change. So it's practice teaching, beginning of freshman year through their senior year. Year number 5, because our program is a 5-year program, is similar to a medical residency, not as long, but it's a paid clinical residency in a partner school. They're finishing their master's degree, their master's degree is paid for, they'll get a living stipend during that final year. Again, if you look at student teaching, I went through a traditional preparation program. I did student teaching for about 14 weeks before getting thrown into a classroom. And I think when you do that, especially your second semester, you aren't setting the culture, norms, and expectations of behaviors in that classroom. You're just not. So shouldn't be a surprise that the number one criticism of principals is that teachers don't know how to manage a classroom. So we believe that 4 years of almost 300 hours of clinical work and 1 complete year of a residency under a master teacher will prepare that teacher to be highly effective the first day they step foot in the classroom. So that's number 2. Finally, and I mentioned this a little bit, is our school partnerships. We've decided rather than having 100 school partnerships, to narrow that down into a very specific number. Right now, we have 11 school partnerships, where the schools have agreed to invest financially in the residency. In exchange for that investment, over a 4-year period, we're sending them clinical students to teach in their schools, and we're helping to build their talent pipeline. We know they're much more diverse, we know they're much more talented, so we're hoping that we can build that pipeline over a period of several years so they can ultimately get hired and retained within that school district, or private school, or charter school. Okay? And we believe that the money is there. We believe the money is there for the school districts to help invest in this clinical and residency model. So, this is 3 years. We're going into our 3rd year of recruiting. We send our students abroad. So this year we've sent students to China. Last year, South Korea. There's some schools school systems internationally that do an exceptional job, much better than we do. We want to learn about it. We want to have our students have a cultural experience. So we're proud of the work we're doing, and certainly appreciate the opportunity to share it today.
Thank you, Dr. Britt. Hand it over, unless there's a question, we'll hand it over to Dr. Mendez.
I really appreciate the opportunity to address the commission. I apologize, I was a little late. I underestimated the road work being done on I-69. As far as it's honored to talk to you today, I'm going to use my time a little differently to talk about the narrative of our organization going forward. We're the newest kid on the block in Indianapolis. So for those of you who don't know, as far as we're a separate school now from Bloomington. In the past, we were a core school. And now as far as the years in the making, there's a blue-driven committee together and decide that the purpose of our particular school at IPY is urban education, and that's what we should be focusing on. And so I'll be spending most of my time talking about the narrative there. But before, can I borrow a bit? I'm sure that's a bit. I didn't want to slide. So, just I think it's important for myself as being as far as why am I interested in education. I'm an accidental tourist actually, and it's not explained why. But as far as the reason why I really love school of education is the ethos of the school of education. It's human development. It's working toward eradicating poverty and the vehicle for social mobility and workforce development. Things I really feel strongly with. Now my story started out actually. I came to Indiana. I'm an Indiana grad. I first came here for law school. And I came here thinking I was going to practice law for a couple of years and go into politics and I was in my early 20s, So the reality kind of came by my first year, and I became the guardian ad litem as far as the child advocacy point. And that was just groundbreaking, because I dealt with 2 custody cases. And when you did the family tree of them, they were all over the place. And they lived in 2 trailer parks outside Bloomington, Indiana. And that really that was eye-opening to me. It's like, maybe I'm kind of fighting the wrong fight, going through a legal, as far as legal career to make change. Maybe I should refocus myself in as far as, and think about things systemically in education. So I'm starting to make the shift to kind of looking at, as far as how can I take my expertise in my love for law, my love for education policy, and kind of turn that and make society better. So, anyway, as far as I said before, I have a PhD in higher education, so I'm not in the teacher education world originally. And I see the great thing about my background, as I see it, is the fact I see education as a system. It's a K-16, K-20, or pre-K, 16 system. And it's a little bit, we'll talk about later as far as a little disconnected. And we can kind of talk about what some things, we can kind of do to kind of address that. I've been in a couple different places across the country. I did something you're not supposed to do. I left before I was finished with dissertation. So I lived in Houston for 2 years. I taught at a community college, Cyber Community College in Houston, and adjunct in University of Houston in political science. And I got a tenure track position at Oklahoma State University. So I spent 11 years there in a very rural environment, Stillwater, Oklahoma, beautiful place, beautiful people, 50,000 people, including livestock. And so very, very rural, and that was a great place to work, to go through the tenure process. I was also fortunate enough to get endowed chair going through, and that's why I went into administration. And as far as after that, an opportunity, I was also a governor-appointed, Senate-confirmed regent for a community college, Cypress Community College, Northern Oklahoma College in Tonopah, Oklahoma. So once again, very rural. After that, as far as I worked at University of Central Florida, and they have 66,000 students there on campus. It's a really large system. I worked in the College of Education there for 2 years as their associate dean, and now I'm back. So, back in Indiana, and coming with a wealth of experience not only in rural environments, but also urban environments. Our focus here at the new school at IPY is urban education. So what do I think, been around the block a couple of times in different neighborhoods, as far as why is our new school so special? And I think as far as the fact that we're at 60%, 60% of our faculty are faculty of color. And that's amazing. We are in a predominantly, IPY is a predominantly white institution in terms of faculty and staff, but as far as we're a highly diverse school, there. And I think that's just something very unique to us. We're small, but we're very industrious. So we generated $3.7 million last year in overall grants overall. We also have R1 faculty, but IUPUI is an aspiring R1. We're an R2 at IUPUI. But we have R1 faculty because we were connected to Bloomington. All of our searches have been with the Bloomington mindset. So we have high performing, academically oriented faculty that are willing to make a difference geared toward research. And lastly, it's our mission about community engagement. I mean, as far as actually doing research that has impact on the world, not just some sort of philosophical piece that researchers get out there, like, postmodern liberalism. It's great, I love that. But as far as things that actually can change family and children's lives going forward. So we're going through a couple different phases since we're new. And so most of my time has been spent doing infrastructure building. And so, so now as far as we have associate deans, we have an associate dean for academic affairs, associate dean for research. Departments are a new feature in our new school going forward. And we just hired a director of development. We really need to get more involved in philanthropy. So if we're really trying to get more students in the teacher education pipeline, number one thing, fun fact, students, react positively to grants and scholarships, So getting that ball rolling in that direction. Also align our research centers and our resources with our institutional mission. We have the Great Lakes Equity Center, and that's a really great research center that's here in an untapped resource, I think, in Indiana in general. We've only had that research center for just a couple of years, but in our short amount of time we've had it, it's generated $12 million in research grants and research dollars going forward. And as far as they have partnerships, not only with, as far as with the public education, we just got a contract through Starbucks. Everybody remembers as far as there was a couple of different customer service issues involved with Starbucks. Now they're actually consultants on diversity and inclusion training at Starbucks. And that's a beautiful connection between education and workforce development going forward. We also are, as far as thanks to Commissioner Lovers and others, we have our early childhood program back on track, and that's gaining some traction there. And also realigning our faculty hiring processes. Now, if you're not familiar with how academia works, sometimes faculty lines are kind of given in sort of an arbitrary sense. And we can move more to a business mindset to actually invest in actual growth areas and enrollment for the school. So we've shifted that thinking within the school we're working with right now. And lastly, cultivating relationships. As far as obviously, IPS is in our clearly we live in IPS, but there's also the dump districts. And so we were actually invited to participate in the superintendent search for IPS. And so we did a report for them. We've been consulting them throughout the search process, and I'm hoping to be able to find their guy or gal, pretty soon. But also extending our partnerships to donut districts, around Indiana proper. So that's phase one, right? So I talked about infrastructure building. This didn't really exist before I got here. So we kind of put this all together. So you see here the 2 associate deans, the 2 department chairs, as far as we have all the faculty kind of lined up into 2 different departments. We reorganized our dean's office operations. We also reorganized the way in which we kind of facilitate our research centers that are associated with the school going forward. So you have that, so that's phase one, right? Phase 2 is our strategic planning process, and down the line I'm going to be showing as far as strategic planning processes in academia it's an exercise of shared governance. As far as it's not only the vision of the dean, but also the vision of the faculty and staff going forward. And it's what we would like to see happening in the next 5 years. The most successful shared governance, the most successful strategic planning processes to me, and I'm biased, is simple and easy to follow. So, I mean, nothing looks like an NFL rule book. That's something that you can just easily kind of get as far as reading through. And so until we get to that point, I've been sharing with our different community partners is my strategic vision for the school, not on strategic planning, because I'm also faculty and staff. But this is how, as far as I see the school, these are some of the benchmarks I want to kind of accomplish in the next couple of years for the school going forward. And that's what you'll see before you very shortly. You also notice in the document I have it tied to our IPY strategic planning, strategic plan, and our IU strategic plan, because obviously I want to make sure that it's aligned with our university and campus issues going forward. So I really, I'm a little bit of a policy geek, because sometimes strategic plan just sits on someone's shelf. I actually do read them, and I think we should follow them. And I think if President Robbie and Chancellor Hagar are spending time putting us together, they should be followed going forward. So all of the different, as far as objectives and goals I have, are tied to our pre-existing strategic planning processes at university and campus level. Lastly, as far as we organize an urban education summit, I think as far as sometimes with academics, we do a bad job of going out to the community and saying, oh, look, we have this research grant that we can implement in your school or district, without actually listening about what their needs are going forward. And so having an urban educational summit will allow us to have that conversation with our community partners, not only as far as in school districts, but also the police department or the urban league and non-governmental agencies as well, just across the board, all these constituents that make up Indianapolis going forward. And then also continue to build our research portfolio. So I think one thing that we're going back to our R1 faculty, and the fact that that's something we really excel in, what's the type of research we're doing out there? And is it making an impact in, as far as not only within the state, but also in the lives of families and their children. Current work, as far as I'll share with you as far as also some of the outreach. Actually, we'll cover some in question and answer, but we are doing a number of different initiatives with our outreach efforts as far as a broad spectrum of activities. I will share there's 2 select grant research projects we're working on. We're in year 2 of a multi-million-dollar grant through the U.S. Department of Education. I'm happy to share more information. I'll share some information with you on that. And then fresh off the press, we recently got a $500,000 grant through the Indiana Department of Education. And I'm more happy to talk about that. I know you guys have been sitting in the day afternoon long meetings, so I kind of make my comments very brief. Phase 2 would be, as far as the third year will be kind of in phase 3 we'll be tackling all these issues. We'll solve them all for you. So all these issues will be solved. I just have a launch, because to me, I think I always make a list of things that need to be taken care of. And it's not that I'm thinking we can tackle them all in 1 or a couple of years. It's just that we always keep mindful of all these are all issues facing colleges and schools of education across the country. So a lot of things we'll probably be talking about later on this afternoon. Yes, they're very Hoosier-centric and so on. But there's other states that are actually going through very similar types of issues as well. And I think we can identify at least probably a handful of these, like, oh, I totally see that this week and so on. And this just provides just a quick timeline of what we're going through. This is our first year of being in operation, 2019 and 2020. So basically kind of listening, aligning, as I've mentioned before, aligning our resources and research centers along with our institutional mission. Year 2 will be our strategic planning process and executing that. And then 3, I wanted to get involved in workforce development. How crazy is that to have a school of education get involved in workforce development? And we're not really, in my previous institution, we had a master's and bachelor's degree in workforce development and developed CTE teachers. And so I think that's something that we, every time I hear a governor, including our own governor, Governor Whitcomb, talk about that, that's music to my ears. And I think we should really just get more involved in that conversation. We don't really, if you are really not married in the past, I think it's just that's we need to do a better job. So with that. With that, I just want to I know you guys, this is the 3rd presentation you've heard, and we kind of, but I look forward to any questions as we, proceed with the session.
Well, thank you to all 3 of you. You did a great job of brevity, and we appreciate that. I wanted to dive in a little bit on some of the facilitated questions that I had sent you, and commission members, please jump in at any point. Back in 2008, as I shared with you, the commission released its first strategic plan, Reaching Higher, and there was a section in that plan titled College Preparation, preparing K-12 teachers, school leaders, and students for college success. And I believe the commission members talked about this yesterday, or they had their own strategic plan retreat yesterday, so they've been talking a lot about strategic plan. But in the 11 years since we put out the original Reaching Higher, many of these K-12 recommendations are still a work in progress. So I really kind of want to dive deep with the three of you today about some of those issues. And so one of the first things under the original strategic plan was under preparation of teachers and school leaders for K-12 success. And it stated that Indiana's colleges and universities must make, quote, the preparation of educator and school leaders a top priority. And they also must work closely with our K-12 counterparts to improve the preparation of teachers, school leaders, and counselors. So my first question to the three of you, and I'm going to start with Scott, is how is the state still making this a top priority in 2019? And then to our deans, what gaps remain in higher ed's partnership with K-12? So, Scott.
Accountability, and when I say that, I mean our focus is to ensure our programs, as I mentioned earlier, are aligned to national as well as state standards. And the only way we can really ensure that our programs are meeting expectations is to look at the measures that are required as a part of accreditation, as well as the measures that are required as a part of our state and federal reporting. If a program is not meeting expectations, then we unfortunately have to take action and recommendation to the board, one way or the other. But ensuring quality, but also ensuring that we are not inhibiting teacher prep, and we're expanding opportunities for both adult learners as well as those that are already enrolled in our programs to work towards licensure and preparation. But the only way we can really know for sure is through accountability measures and accreditation. So that's, at least for me, our top focus in ensuring quality preparation.
I think similarly for us, it would be accountability in collaboration with our K-12 partners. You know, what we ask our professors that we're hiring, how do I hold you accountable? And as dean, how can I hold you accountable? And we talk about not just the minimum state requirements, but how well children learn under the care of our graduates. Really, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Are they moving the needle up, staying the same, or getting worse? So our K-12 partnership agreements, in addition to a financial investment from the school district, there's a data transparency investment for them to share that with us so that we can monitor whether or not our graduates are performing well, staying the same, or reducing it. The second area I would say, and Dr. Mendez reported on this a little bit, is really focused on research, creating digestible research at the higher ed level so that our K-12 school partners can understand it and know how to act, rather than just creating research with each of us higher ed academics to rate and value. Say, oh, that's a great research project, Dr. Mendez, and okay, that's great. Thanks for your research project. It has to be digestible and understandable in how you change something or some type of behavior in schools.
There has been any mention, I would disagree with that. I do want to take a little bit of a different tack. I think that we can do a better job. I feel like there's a disconnect between higher education and K-12. I mean, not only as far as us working together, or I'm just saying a broad stroke nationwide. And I think as far as we can do a better job as far as conversing with one another, and that's the reason I kind of, I was only 6 months into my deanship where I threw myself into the IPS search, because that's the kind of work we should be involved in, developing those partnerships going forward. So I think we need to have more conversation and in just general in the statewide sense. Also, I'm always worried about what are we doing in K-12 education, just preparing our in terms of post-secondary access. What are the relationships between K-12 education and getting our children ready for college? And when you talk about post-secondary access issues, usually revolves around as far as the financial access and academic preparation. And so we need to sometimes we lose focus of that through time, because sometimes we just feel there's so much traffic going through. So we just be very mindful of that and continue on having those conversations. Also just being very mindful of how, I worry about education in general being attacked as a public good. And I think the public understands education in different wavelengths. I think in general, maybe the public understands K-12 because it's accessible, they see it every day, they deliver their kids off in school. Higher education has a little bit more of a sort of ivory tower mystique, as far as people don't quite understand how higher education works sometimes. But I think as far as just telling the narrative, be doing a better job of telling our story about the positive attributes of not only as far as what K-12 does across the board, but also higher education as well. And it's just more of a, we need to do a better job of telling our story about the great work that's being done, not only with the work with the commission, but also in the K-12 stratosphere.
Thank you. The second recommendation I really wanted to hone in was under the teacher content. Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Absolutely, Dennis.
But before we go further, I would please, you recommend us make a comment about education being attacked to the public good, and just kind of expand on that. What do you mean by that? How is education being attacked as a public good, like your insight?
Well, I think as far as maybe attack is, in terms of the value of education as a public good, in terms of supporting education initiatives, supporting as far as whether it be, and this can manifest itself in different types of ways. As far as teacher compensation is one way it could be manifested. Two, as far as that people don't, they don't really understand the importance of education plays in people's lives. So if we take it, so the perfect example is rural education in general. When you look at these small school districts, these rural school districts, that's the entire identity of these small communities. So when people in cities, kind of look at, why we consolidating, not fully understanding what these small rural communities, what they stand for in these small, farming communities, that's sometimes their entire identity. So it's just not fully understanding as far as the impact of what schools mean to our community going forward. So.
Great question. The second recommendation I wanted to talk about was under the teacher content knowledge expectation section of the original plan. And it stated that Indiana standards for new teachers should be revised to provide clear and measurable expectations for entry-level teachers, as well as clearly define and set the content level expectations for teacher prep programs. And that Indiana must ensure all teachers are masters of the subject they teach. So my question to you is, in 2019, how are teacher prep programs ensuring new candidates have strong subject matter content knowledge? I want to start with Dr. Mendez and then allow Dr. Britt to follow up.
I think when you look at colleges and schools of education, they're all kind of relative thing when it comes to content. Some schools and colleges of education have the content within, they teach in-house. So they have faculty within the college of education that teach their content courses, math, science, and so on. Other schools, and IP-wise, we actually formed it out. Actually, the School of Science, the school, other schools teach their content, and we partnered with them going forward, which I think it's a really, I think their IPY operates this way. UTEP, a couple of the other Texas schools operates this way. We taught it in-house at my previous institution in Florida. So it's important to kind of keep that in mind. We can do a better job of that. So what we're doing now is we're partnering with, at IPY, since we're partnering with the School of Science to have dual degrees in STEM-like fields. And so we're working on the hard sciences first, right? And so we've been doing that. We're going to work this year. We have something you'll probably come across your desk, Commissioner Lovers, in the next couple of months. As far as, and the reason it's hard to have those conversations within the campus because sometimes deans kind of fight over SCH production. And as far as the own courses, so it's kind of a little delicate dance. But the current dean within the School of Science and I, we work really well together. And this is basically for our students and for our community. So we're working well together and developing a dual degree that's might be slightly over 120 hours going forward. But it's those type of partnerships working in a disciplinary to have to address some of the shortcomings in the STEM field, and we're actually losing some credit hours in that partnership. I think it's sort of a give and take sort of conversation. So we have to kind of do a better job of talking across the different fields to really kind of bolster our STEM education needs within the state. That's one example.
For Marion, we are requiring our students to not only have a double degree, so in the secondary level, you'll have a Bachelor of Arts in Mathematics and a Bachelor of Arts in Secondary Education, but with our 5-year program, a master's degree with at least 18 content hours within the discipline. So it's a pretty significant lift. It's a major change. We believe it's important for people to have a much greater depth of the content if they're going to be able to teach it to high school students. At the elementary level, it is very challenging to be a master of everything. When you think about it, we expect our elementary teachers in 5th grade to be masters of every single discipline and masters of all the social emotional issues and all of the poverty issues, right? I mean, it is literally impossible, and we struggle with that. So there was legislation that was passed a couple of years ago, adding to the licensure area for elementary teachers in STEM, science and math fields. I think that's a good first step. We believe that if you look at high-performing countries, they start specializing 3rd grade. So you have a math teacher in 3rd grade rather than a generalist education teacher. And we believe that with our elementary teachers having a master's degree, being able to focus on a particular discipline is important.
Thank you both. And you kind of teed up the next part talking about, we had a section in 2008, we're still dealing with it, teacher shortages, math, science, and special ed. And we talked about in the original plan, higher ed must be informed and willing partners in stemming teacher shortages and ensuring that K-12 schools have a sufficient supply of effective educators by accelerating the recruitment of our very best in the teaching profession and providing incentives for students to pursue math, science, and special ed. Now, back in 2008, we called out those areas, but the commission is readily aware that the state continues to have shortages in other subject areas, as well as by geography, gender, and race and ethnicity. So, to all of our panelists, how are teacher prep programs working together with the state and its partners to address this continued challenge? Dr. Britt?
Well, if we knew the answer to that, I think we'd probably go out and play the Powerball. That's, I mean, every, not only, STEM-related education fields, but STEM-related fields in general are very difficult, especially for students of color. But I think that, obviously, compensation has to be a piece of that. I mean, if you can become an engineer and make $80,000 starting out, and then teacher salary, you're gonna make 42, 45, there's a big disconnect. So there has to be some issue there in compensation, but I think that is a short-term solution. The longer-term solution is, again, why teachers leave, and that's working conditions. You are lucky if you're a teacher today to get a planning period. It's just a fact. And usually when you do get that planning period, you're asked to sub in another person's classroom because that teacher's out. Or you're expected to do some type of duty. So it's that old factory mentality system of one classroom, one teacher, 20 kids, and then you move on to the next, and the next, and the next. That has to change. The working conditions have to be a little bit different. The third is, I think, leveraging the Next Generation Who's Your Educator Scholarship, doing more to either focus on STEM, so I don't know, there are 200 scholarships a year, so if there's a way to allocate certain percentage of that to STEM-related secondary, I don't know if that's possible. That would be one idea, but just generally, bringing awareness to that program, I think will help.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Actually, Scott, I was going to ask you this question. In some of the other training programs, in particular Transition to Teach, are we seeing that we're, dealing with some of these shortage areas? Are people doing Transition to Teach still more likely to go into areas where we don't have a shortage as opposed to those that do?
That's a great question. I don't have statistics in front of me, but I would say strongly that our transition teaching programs are helping in the STEM areas, because we have many who have been in a profession for many years, say chemist or math statistician or an accountant, and they're interested in teaching. And in some cases, it's towards the end of their career, it's a lifelong dream that they've always had to teach. So percentage-wise, and that's something I would like to look into, what % of the transition teaching admitted candidates and completers are in our STEM areas, because we do have several P12, well, a few P12, we have several secondary 512 transition teaching programs and a lot of elementary, so that would be something well worth investigating. One of the things that we are encouraging schools to consider are hosting their own transition teaching programs within a school building. And I know that sounds odd, but our licensure rules do allow for a non-higher education entity to develop their own transition teaching program within the building. So if they have someone that, say, the principal knows a chemist who would be an excellent teacher, teach chemistry, and this individual is interested in being in that classroom, the school can develop their own transition teaching program for that individual or anyone else in the building, and work with those individuals for licensure. And of course, they have to submit a proposal to us that we then take to the state board, and we've had at least 2 non-higher ed entities develop those types of programs. Our only catch on that is that they must adhere to the same expectations for other programs. So as close as possible, they will need to adhere to the CAPE expectations that are in the program. Was that just me?
The last one he got was his front door. I think this was his girlfriend.
We'll say no
Well,
more.
it's interesting because I remember when we passed the transition to teaching bill, I remember vividly having a physics teacher from Purdue,
Yeah.
he's from Fishback.
Yeah.
I didn't forget that name. He came in to testify because he was teaching physics at Purdue, and he wasn't able to teach at a high school anymore at that point without, and so that was part of the design of this, is that at least from the competency of the subject matter, we may have needed to have the extra credit hours in the pedagogy, but, you know, why you would ask him to go back and, so I think that is a much better situation now than it used to be because of the transition.
And we also have the advanced degree option, which is, I think, one of our best kept secrets. I think it needs to be promoted more. Individuals who have an advanced degree in a content area and at least 1 year of teaching experience at the P16 level, P12, P16 level, and pass the content test and get a license.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So we have several, well, for example, CAPE expects faculty to be licensed in the state in which they are working. So many of our faculty, I don't think they're aware of the fact that, you know, I've taught for at least 1 year in a college setting. I've met the teaching department and statute, as the content test, which sometimes isn't hopefully not an issue, and taking the license. So that's one I'd like to see.
And I want to also just encourage Zach to weave in questions from the commission as you're weaving through your questions. Yeah, go ahead.
You mind?
Yeah,
Yeah, so it actually timing is relevant on this, I think. Dr. Brick, you referenced kind of the traditional challenges in the system, if you will, and one observation and question that I have is related to what I've seen historically in K-12 is, you know, in a given subject matter, you may find a wonderful teacher who's just fantastic, but the teacher teaching the same subject in the room next door is, you know, nowhere near that capable in any number of ways. And so the point of the observation is there's very little systemic ability to help spread best practice and raise the, you know, the level across the road. So I know some schools have introduced things like professional learning communities, PLC, and that sort of thing to try and get at that and other programs, but I'm curious at the teacher training level, how is that being looked at all as to your ability to continue to collaboratively work to improve your craft and improve others around you?
It's a great question. I think that part of our experiential model beginning the freshman year lends itself perfectly to these types of experiences so that we can send our students out and they can learn in that type of environment. We've integrated the NIET TAP rubric into our curriculum. So again, from a facilitation standpoint, to understand common language of high leverage teaching practices so that they can model best practices of master teachers or mentor teachers in the field directly, so they can see that happening. You know, in addition to professional learning communities, I think within schools, if you replicate some of the higher performing systems in the country, you have one way to become a higher paid professional in education, and that's to go into leadership. Leadership being assistant principal, principal, or superintendent. Well, if you're a dynamite teacher, we need you to teach these kids. We should compensate you more by being a professional leader within that department or grade level. So maybe you're teaching a few hours less, but you're also mentoring others. And I think that's one of the ways when I talk about workplace conditions, it's an easy fix with a big lift.
Dr. Mendez, you mentioned a couple of times that the IE School of Education concentrates on urban education. And certainly our urban schools had unique challenges, and their success is very much tied to our success with the goals that we have here on the commission. So I'd just like you to tell us more about that. What do you do differently because of that concentration, and what are some of the special programs or emphases?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think as far as with urban education, I guess there's a dichotomy, and sometimes it's artificial between urban education and rural education. That's the reason I've been at two extremes, and I think what kind of separates that is resources and density going forward. And so there's also an element when you talk about urban education of diversity and poverty. You know, and poverty looks a little different in an urban environment than it does in a rural environment. I think just in terms of working, you know, with you know, as far as there's issues of gentrification that are in urban environments that they're not really as apparent in rural environments, which the contexts are a little different going forward. And the research that we focus on at IEP-wise, we do have a strong focus to social justice and equity issues going forward. And that's something that the school's been unapologetic about and throughout its, you know, even with as a four schools, unapologetic about going forward as far as balancing those educational opportunities going forward. Given that one of our, you know, our focus is on diversity and inclusion, you know, I think, and given the fact that we have, you know, go back to the idea that we have 60% of our faculty who are of color, I think our faculty think about recruiting and reaching out to potential students differently than maybe others. I think when you talk about recruiting students of color, they communicate at a different frequency than maybe other student demographics. And what do I mean by that? So, drawing from my own background as being, you know, Hispanic, Mexican American, one thing we're working on right now is having a landing site for our website in Spanish. And it's not that we're trying to put everything in Spanish. It was just, you know, in talking about that is what the Spanish language represents to the community, that you're making an effort to kind of speak on their wavelength going forward. And I don't think that would have translated well nearly, you know, that's something that works at an urban environment. That approach works in an urban environment, probably won't work as well in a rural environment going forward. So I think there's just certain, you know, there's maybe different approaches, there's different sort of focus on diversity and inclusion than you may say in schools that are just working with rural populations going forward. So, does that address your question, or is there?
Yeah, or you know, addressing, sometimes there's systemic problems within those school districts, or resource problems. So do you try to address those?
Yes, we have a partnership with George Washington. We have a partnership with George Washington High School in Indianapolis, which is a community school. And so, and it's, we did the same thing in my previous employment as far as we partnered with the Evans High School in Paramore, Orlando, Florida, which is predominantly an African-American population there in Orlando. But I think as far as more needs to be done with those type of initiatives, we also had a conversation about having a lab school. We don't currently have that. I know as far as other schools do, I mean, Purdue, Butler, others have that. And I'm not saying we do a lab school to copy everybody else. Maybe the lab school takes a different type of form, you know, because we contribute in different ways to the urban educational ecosystem of Indianapolis. So, but those are the kind of conversations we'll be having during the strategic planning process this coming year.
I don't want to make a controversial statement, but I'll say that this is a very complex space. I mean, very complex. There's lots of socioeconomic issues that are involved, but there's a lot of people that feel our K-12 system is failing. And we have not seen the progress that we need to see, despite efforts at reform over the last 30 years in our state. And in my mind, it often comes down to people. And what I hear a lot from teachers and from friends that serve on school boards and things like that is that one of the real challenges we have, beyond just the quality of teaching in the classroom, is the quality of the leadership in a school building. And that there's a big, could you both talk a little bit about, are you addressing, while you're looking at trying to address the quality of teachers going into the classroom to teach, are you also trying to address the leadership issues in the school buildings, which can create the right kind of atmosphere for success, or cause teachers to leave early because it's not the right atmosphere? I'm just curious what you guys are doing.
I do think there's a lack of leadership in education. What I mean by that, as far as in terms of, we do a very poor job of kind of leading as far as building the leadership capacity of our educational organizations, whether it be K-12 or higher education. We need to do better job with that. At IEPY, we have a PhD in urban educational studies, where a large majority of that is on administrative issues going forward. We're also partnering with the different other IU campuses to our master's degree in educational leadership online to make it more accessible, because when you're working full-time in K-12 education, it's kind of hard to take yourself out, and actually go to campus and so on. So when you talk about quality online instruction, as far as that would be, just, I think that's something that we're talking about within IU itself. So just to think about different ways to give them the tools going forward to become your better leaders or move up the administrative ladder. But it's just more or less, how can we partner with the school districts to have better lead-ins to develop, the future leaders of tomorrow, whether it be vice principals, or superintendents.
There's no question, I think the most important impact, not necessarily from a research standpoint, but from an educational standpoint, is the leader. I mean, think about businesses that you own. Many of you, if you own businesses, if you are performing very well in a certain sector of your business, you typically look at that department leader or the division leader. And it's the same with schools. So our theory of change in terms of education improvement is focused on three things. One, and most importantly, is the school leader. Strong teachers will not work for weak leadership. They will not. They will get frustrated and they will leave. So you have to address the leadership issue. That's number one. Number two is effective instruction. We talked a lot about teacher preparation today. I don't want to go into more of that. And the third is this growing body of research that needs to attend to the unique needs of every single child in the building. Every child is uniquely gifted and uniquely challenged. So comprehensive student support efforts for every single kid. So it's not as aggressive as having an IEP for every single student, but there are programs out there. We have a partnership with Boston College, which probably has the most 20 years of research on the effectiveness of comprehensive student support, where every single child in the school has their own individual support plan. Not that the schools do more, but the schools serve as a broker of resources of community agencies that already exist to deploy those resources into the school and support the students and families. And then it removes those non-academic barriers to allow the students to thrive.
So if we are looking at, the learning that takes place as a measure and a metric of a classroom teacher, what do you use as the measure of an effective school leader? I mean, you mentioned, keeping teachers' retention, but we know that that isn't in and of itself enough because some teachers will stay forever, and so that may not be the measure. So what are measures of a school leader that we should hold the school leader accountable?
Well, I think it's similar to what we already hold them accountable for, and that's growth and achievement. I mean, the data already
So
exists.
the same thing that you measure teachers by.
Yeah, because it's available by school. If we're not growing in achieving as a leader, and you give that person a period of time, then that leader isn't as effective as it should be, and you need to make a change or make a move or additional resources or whatever it is. But again, I don't think it's reinventing the system, it's just looking at what's already there.
I think there's probably some immeasurable metrics there as well, and that's more they're more quantifiable than quantified. And how do you measure culture, like working culture, whether it's a positive working environment? So if you have a positive working environment, you have a high-performance school that has a really, subpar working environment. So we have to think about also, how, are teachers excited about coming to school? Does the principal or, superintendent have a management style that actually, makes people excited about going to school every day? And that's a little bit harder also as well to kind of measure, I'm pretty sure there's some, there's ways to do that.
Dr. What do you think about having an IEP for every student?
As I mentioned, we have a partnership with Boston College. It's called City Connects. We were funded through FSSA this past year. We implemented a pilot program in 3 local public and public charter elementary schools where there is an individual student support plan in place for every student under the care of what we call a site coordinator. So it's not as aggressive as a federally mandated IEP that has the weight and teeth, but it provides us a strength-based program. And the research, and I encourage you to look it up, because it's really unbelievable. There's not another student support program like that out there. Students who go through a City Connects program are more likely to graduate from college. These are studies that have been conducted by MIT, Johns Hopkins, and Columbia that validate. I believe that through individualization, all of us like individualization. We need to individualize. It's hard to individualize instruction. We can do it, but I don't think to the level, the granular level that we want to, but at least from a student support to help remove those non-academic barriers, things like that can happen.
I'd like to just take a second and sort of double down on this issue of leadership and leadership training. We often have discussions in the commission about things that our employers need, and oftentimes one of the things that comes up is the soft skills, and I guess leadership and leadership development seems to me to be the thing that brings a lot of those qualities to bear, that people learn to lead themselves, they learn to lead others, and they learn to lead organizations in that progression. And when we think of, you just said, in schools, there's great leadership, it just attracts others and it empowers others. And I just think, as we ended our strategic plan, I just think this whole thing of leadership training and leadership development training, I think it's essential for everything. And it's just going to play a greater role in the training of teachers and the training of students and training in particular, because oftentimes these are the things, these are the skills, these are the experiences of again, learning to lead yourself, learning to lead others, and learning to lead organizations. So I just think it needs to be part of our dialogue in every discipline.
Well, if there's no other questions, I want to again thank our 3 panelists for traveling up to Fort Wayne. We appreciate all of your time. Thank you, commission members, for your engaging questions and thoughts.
Can I just say one thing? When I heard The Godfather came out, I looked over to see if Luca Brasi was walking.
Excuse me, Jess. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Dr. Britt, before you all go, if I can ask just one question of you all, just imposed before you go. I'm just asking for advice. So given our work on the Commission for Higher Education, and the strategic plan work that was discussed a few minutes ago, what specific issues or suggestions do you think would be helpful for us to consider in ways specifically that would help us advance our work, which would actually ultimately help education and ultimately help get more students through the pipeline? Any advice in terms of what we should be thinking about and contemplating on a deeper level?
I'm not sure if that happens here in Indiana, but as far as I'm not sure there's a good relationship between the Indiana Department of Education and this commission, and so maybe there could be more in-depth conversations about kind of breaking down how can we address the disconnect between K-12 education and higher education going forward. Because once again, it's one thing in every state I've lived at, there's not that high level of conversation that probably should be happening between these two, connecting educational institutions.
Thanks for the question, Dennis. I think two things. One was already mentioned, leadership. I think that's heart of a lot of these issues. Second is if the commission can help us launch a public service campaign for reestablishing the profession of education. I think if more people in the commission, and we're trying to do this right now with the sports, because we're trying to recruit a bunch of students. We've gone to all the sports teams in Indianapolis to help us, get on the Jumbotron, during, those timeouts that they have, Pacer game, you see, what's your favorite food, right? You get a big roll of Evo. What's your major at IU? Those are really funny and those are cool. But how about a 10-second or 15-second video clip talking about your favorite teacher and why? That is powerful, so that we can start seeing the impact that an educator can make on the life, even of a professional athlete or a business leader. I think the commission can really do something about that. And I mean, I don't say it's easy, but I mean, it's something tangible that I believe that can help us as educators stiffen up our back and say, you know what? Yes, we are the future. We train, as educators, we train the future everything. Really, when you think about it.
We tried, and I'm struck by what you're saying because I think it's so important. You may recall that when we rolled out the next generation, we actually said we want to use this as an opportunity to uphold the nobility of the profession as well. And so we actually had a campaign that we were running around inspirational teachers. And we didn't have enough money to probably run it as long or to have the kind of impact, but it posed the question, why people would go into the school is because they inspire others, and it was, you might want to go back and, especially for some of the newer members on the commission, let you see that campaign again and see if we could try to, have it be a little updated again. Although the principles that we were conveying, I think, are still the ones we're talking, that, everybody has an inspirational teacher, somebody made a difference in their lives, and that's why you go into the profession. And that's why we
I'm not sure if the commission needs to spend the money. I think it's the broker of the business community. When you think about the Allen County Hubbard with the Hubbard Awards for the teachers, that puts the teachers on a pedestal here, right? That's the business community getting involved, recognizing the value of a teacher and putting them up here. Well, how many Allen Counties are there across the state that could do something like that? How many of our sports teams, even in here, minor league baseball, bringing teachers out, or talking about different types of impact that the teachers have had. I think, again, it's just the commission being an instigator to help, not necessarily spending the money.
If I can get into that conversation, I think one way with the teacher profession has been traditionally sold has been a path to middle class. And I think many of you revisit, not necessarily just the money part of it, but just the role that schools play. And so if you shift that from basically just a teacher in the classroom to more of what you said, a community leader, I think that speaks well. That speaks actually to a lot of students of color. That they want to, there's this responsibility of social uplift. And that's what you see in a lot of the schools of education in California. That's what they're doing as far as to promote this part of the teaching profession there. And the one thing that's happening in California is you have this influx of Latinx students that are actually increasing the teacher education pipeline there in that state. So I think sometimes it's very wise to kind of revisit how is the teacher profession sold to the public. So.
And I'd like to point out also, I'm sorry, Peter, adult learners. Let's not forget those who are interested in transitioning from one career into teaching and the challenges that they face, especially financial. I hear occasionally that there are not a lot of scholarship or financial options for those who are adults wanting to enter the teaching profession. So if there are ways to expand upon funding opportunities for them, that would be great. Would be welcome.
Scott, Ken, Jesse, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, excuse me, sir, if I could just comment. I'm just really heartened by the advice of the council given, as you recall, in our strategic planning session yesterday, there was a re-echoing or an echoing of the sentiment of capitalizing on our platform of the commission to really be a messenger and a conveyor. We talk so much in terms of our role as a coordinating board, and oftentimes it's often stated with a tinge of there's not much we can do. Whereas I think one of the most fundamental opportunities in coordination is communication. And so I think we're getting advice or counsel to really leverage the fact you have access to community, you have access to corporation, you have access to higher ed, you have access. And how do we leverage that to communicate not just the message of the nobility of the profession of teaching, but some of the other messages that we want to message that helps us drive some of these metrics.
I think that's an excellent point. That is something that would make sense for us to spend a little bit of time talking about, because the commission does have considerable sway through its members and through its just the organization and its commissioner, and how to leverage those, in a way that's effective, gets the key messages out. The challenge is that there's a lot of messages, a lot of constituencies we need to reach with different messages, but we've just hired a new communications.
She'll take care of it.
She'll take care of it. Well, that's a great point, Dennis. Thank you for sharing that. Each fiscal year, the commission sets a spending plan for the following fiscal year. This morning, we had an overview of the spending plan, which is on our agenda for consideration. May I have a motion?
I'd like to get in the minutes once, so I'll move.
Okay.
My last meeting, I need to be in the minutes.
Let the minutes reflect. Kathy moved. And we have a second.
I'll second.
Second. Any discussion?
Thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Appreciate that. This morning, we also heard about updated policies for policy on regional campus roles and missions, and also the policy on Purdue University 4-wing. This is also on your agenda, on our agenda, and it is on page 13, by the way, in your agenda book. May I have a motion? Motion and seconded. Any discussion?
Just one question. So do we have a similar policy on Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis? I know we're not doing that today, but I assume the one exists is comparable, is that?
Ken?
No, we do not. We don't have a policy on every campus within the system. It's the regional campuses and Fort Wayne. We also have Vincennes and Ivy Tech too.
He was asking about IUP.
Do we have the
Yeah,
same-
we don't.
We do not?
No.
Any other further questions or comments?
I'll just make a comment that I hope the minutes would reflect that we would have continued discussion on how we intend to interpret changes. Exceptional, the word exceptional in there, that we continue some conversation on that.
I think that's an excellent point. Let the minutes reflect that.
So I have a question. Not here right now, but, so our policy for the regional campuses on housing is limited to 10%, but it does not apply to Fort Wayne. Is that right? And is there a reason for that?
We're asking about the 10% for housing.
Yeah, well, that's right, and it would not, in approaching the policies, we kept the policies the same, except for the editorial changes I mentioned, and one area about educational responsibility that deals with the professional practice doctrine.
So he's asking, does the 10% apply to Purdue? Valley, as a metropolitan college.
No, it's not in that.
No, it's specific.
Yeah, and it's probably good that it isn't, because we were having the conversation today, they're slightly above 10% of housing right now here, so, and none of the other regional campuses were anywhere close, no one was even halfway close to that, so
But I thought that, again, go back further in my time here, but when I learned about it, I thought it made sense that
these
y'all
are
have a policy to limit, or the commission has a policy to limit housing to 10% to, for one, the cost to have division of responsibility and the West Lafayette and Bloomington campuses being, major campuses that attract kids from all over the country and the world, where the regional campuses have a more limited charge and objective for their really region and commuter students, et cetera. And this is and I noticed in the policy that we're passing for the regional campuses, the 10% is continuing, but then for Fort Wayne it is not. And I was just wondering why there's a difference.
It really goes back to the time when Fort Wayne, then IPFW, was designated as a metropolitan university. At that point, it came out from under the regional campus policy and really had its own metropolitan university policy associated with it. And that, as you can see on page 20, it has it does speak to residences, but it's a broader allowance for the Fort Wayne campus.
So then, is it the only metropolitan
Yes,
campus?
it is.
Is that a term we've coined, or is that
The legislature.
universal?
Yeah, that was in statute.
I think enough questions have come up around mission differentiation, regional campuses, urban campuses, certain terminology around exceptional, things like that, that it might make sense to have a good working session at one of the next couple of meetings that we have coming up to touch base on how we've operated over the last several years in this whole area of mission differentiation, what adjustments we're making, and how to have clarity around that as a commission.
I think we wanted to do that as a part of the strategic plan anyway, so I think that makes sense. I will just say that, the 10%, there is no regional campus that is anywhere close to 10% housing at this point. And I think there was a slide in Virginia that also said, and there's some language that talked about if there a financial rationale for that goes beyond that, we could revisit that there's been no reason to since the policy was put in place. But that's very specific about housing. What I hear you and understanding is a broader discussion about in the era of collaboration, new students, new ways of learning, what does that mean in terms of missions? And that's one of those areas in which we clearly do work very closely with our partner colleges and universities.
Yeah.
Because they have their own mission statements too, and so
Right.
we need to.
It's good for the commission members to, and the committees, to understand kind of what are those rules and brackets, so that as items come through, they've got some basis for making decisions and forwarding things on to the commission and that kind of thing. So,
I agree. It would help us all. I've never heard this terminology for Fort Wayne as
Metropolitan, it came about as part of all the discussions that had happened for several years, and they were looking at in the community and the schools, and so then it was put into statute.
so we can have staff work on that for the next meeting or the following meeting this summer. That would be great. Wonderful. Thank you very much. This morning, we heard about the interstate reciprocity agreement.
We need to vote.
We need to vote.
I think we need to vote.
Yes.
We need to vote.
That's correct.
I need a motion.
No. We got a motion already. We have a motion.
We have a
already. We have a
motion.
motion.
Second. All right, I call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Reciprocity, we talked about that this morning. I think everyone hopefully remembers about that. Beginning on page 21 of your agenda book, we've got an updated agreement. Could I have a motion?
I'll move. There you go.
Second.
I'll get an area.
All right, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Terrific. Thank you. On page 33 of your agenda book, we have 4 academic degree programs for expedited action. May I have a motion?
Sure. I'll move.
May I have a second?
You're going out with a bang.
I'm going out with a bang.
Judd, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
The new person's gonna look at that and say, she moved all of that?
So the last item we have between us and adjournment is on page 37. I want to mention that the commission meeting scheduled for 2020 has been finalized, and it's at your place there. So please mark your calendars for the dates as we move through the rest of 19 and 2020. Is there any old business? Any new business? Hearing none, our next meeting is scheduled for August 8th in Gary at IU Northwest. Please be safe driving home. We're adjourned.